Film Fanatics. From the silver screen to your earphones with Alan Azulay and Gal Balaban.
Welcome back to Film Fanatics, where we talk about the movies that have us obsessed, excited, and inspired. I'm Alan.
And I'm Gal. So today is stop motion animation day here at Film Fanatics, and we thought we'd bring on a very special guest to talk a bit about himself and then some stop motion movies with us. Today, our guest is the director of the sci-fi thriller short film 12 Kilometers. He also hosts the podcast In Love with the Process, in which, in his own words, he sits down with working artists and filmmakers who are willing to share some of the most intimate stories and demystify the path to success. Please welcome to the Film Fanatics, Mike Pecci. How are you doing today?
Oh, what a great intro. I'm good, man.
Yeah, Gal is really good at that. That's why I always let him intro our guests, because he has a knack for it.
It's great, man. It's great to meet you both. How are you?
We're good. Tell us a bit about you. Obviously, you have this big short film that we've watched by now. Tell us a bit about what you do for the viewers.
So I've been a director now for, over 20 years. So I started as a commercial and music video director. And then I've been a horror film director for years. And I also, like you said, run a podcast in the interim, because most of being a director is about waiting around and prepping. So keep myself busy with both those. I've done a movie, as you mentioned. I did a movie called 12 Kilometers, which has been very popular. And it was a proof of concept short film that is being developed into a feature film as we speak. So,
wow. Is there anything more you can tell us about that?
Well, I mean, I can tell you what I've told the listeners of the show, of my show. The piece, like I said, we did a proof of concept piece for it. We ended up taking it around Hollywood and pitching it to a bunch of different places. And right now it is with Scott Free, which is Ridley Scott's company.
Nice.
So they are the one.
Congratulations,
That's fantastic.
man.
Yeah, man. They're the ones that are developing, but the developing process is a very long process. And, technically, even though I've been directing for 20 years and I've done all sorts of large productions, I am technically a first-time feature film director, which just means that everything works a little bit slower. And sometimes I have to do smaller projects before I do larger projects. It's just sort of proving your track record. So it's been good. I mean, we have an amazing script for the feature version of 12 Cam that's ready to go. And then I also did another short called Who's There? And that one is also in development with a few big places. And we'll see which one goes first.
Nice, man. I will say, I watched 12K, and do you refer to it as 12K or 12 kilometers?
Yeah, 12 kilometers or 12. It's been abbreviated 12 km these days, but yeah, it's 12 kilometers is what it's called.
Okay, so I watched 12 kilometers, and I have to say, man, it's fantastic. I'm not just saying this because, you're on the show or whatever. I'm telling you, I really, really, really liked it. Like, congratulations, man! It's a great short film.
What was your favorite part about it? What do you really like about it? Is it the acting? Is it the...
So Gal knows how much I'm a cinematography fan, and I love the cinematography here. Like it usually is what makes or breaks a film for me is cinematography, which I know it's not the same for a lot of people, but like that's usually what does it for me. And man, I love the cinematography, man. I love the camera work. I love the just the vibe it gave. I love the eeriness of it. I don't know how to explain even. Like it was that good. And I really like the concept, like the horror aspects of it. Yeah.
I really love that it was like, this is an idea that's been explored a lot, but when it's done well, it can be really interesting how sort of mankind contributes to the monsters, or it's like the arrogance of like mankind, depletion of the resources and whatnot. And I really love the practical effects and the lighting that was incorporated. Now, a lot of directors like to sometimes talk about their influences, and there's one that I might have drawn. Maybe I'm wrong, but the final scene really reminded me of Under the Skin. Was that possibly an influence?
So we did it before Under the Skin.
Nice.
Got you.
But yeah, it's funny when you're an independent filmmaker, one of the things that you have to try to do is use the resources that are available to you. And one of the reasons why we did most of the effects practically, so we ended up, I had to find a oily substance that could be puppeteered, because I didn't want to do, sorry about the construction outside. I didn't want to do CGI, because CGI, if you don't have money, bad CGI looks like bad CGI, no matter what. And coming from my roots as a cinematographer, I know that there's so many really great happy mistakes that can be found when you are shooting things through glass. And so we found this fluid that we could puppeteer with magnets, and that, looking through the magnifying glass, I was able to find really, really cool happy accidents, which made that creature what it was. So with the end of the movie, one of the restrictions that I had was I wasn't going to be able to create this huge sort of CGI space. And I think if I was to do it modern days, I'd probably use one of those volume screen rooms like they do for The Mandalorian, but that wasn't available when I was doing it. So we just kept it very simplistic. And I had like a blacked out studio space, and I brought in black sand and just did a lot of it with sound design. So originally that idea came out of necessity because I didn't have the money to make something much larger than that. So what really wasn't influenced by anybody. It was like, okay. And honestly, I had years ago, I did a music video for a band called Meshuggah, and I did the Meshuggah Bleed music video. And we used a lot of those same techniques in that video that I then sort of polished and refined for 12 cam.
Awesome. I will say, like you were talking about like happy accidents, when you were working with like practical effects and limited budgets and all that. I feel like that's something we all learn when we're learning about film. And I gotta say, I'm so glad that you didn't have the money for that volume, or that it didn't exist, because it came out so good, and I think it came out way better than it would have with the volume, if I'm being honest. Like we've seen a lot of the volume being used lately, and even though that sometimes it can look fantastic, it's a new technology. People are still figuring it out, and like I don't, in my opinion, nothing replaces like practical stuff. I feel like that's what really draws me to film. Even though I'm like I'm a Star Wars nerd and like a Marvel DC guy, all that, I still like my favorite thing about movies when you can really see that it's there. Like when it's CGI, when it's like in the volume or green screen. So like I'm very happy that you didn't have the money. Probably happier than you were at the time, but yeah.
Well, I mean, look, it's very relevant because that's why I'm kind of like all over the place this week and exhausted. I just finished shooting yesterday. I just finished shooting a new piece. So I did a new short that we were talking off air that I had car trouble, and that's why I was late this morning. I was literally taking bags of fake snow that I have left over to the dump when my car went to shit. So like I have a car loaded with fake snow particles. We just created this snow blizzard wonderland here in California over the weekend, and it's all practical. So I love practical stuff because I can find things accidentally.
Because the process is just a wonder to you.
Yeah, dude. And then there's something nice about living in it. Like when you have everything lit well, you can walk through that set and just sort of feel that. So what you guys felt on 12 cam when you watched it, I'm lucky enough to be the guy that got to walk around in that set.
Got to live it.
And live in it, yeah. Which is fun. Which is kind of why I like to do these. I like to build worlds, like as a nerd myself, that I get to live in for a little while and eat my lunch and like, imagine being able to go eat your lunch on the set of like Close Encounters. You know what I mean? That's really fun to me.
That was just it. But tell me, please, which camera did you use? Which?
All right, so let me tease you a bit here and say that at the end of the day, it doesn't really make a difference. I think
I know it doesn't. But like, I'm just a bit of a nerd.
So I think what's more important than the actual camera body is the glass.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, for sure.
So
100.
it's really the glass. And I should point out now, since we're talking about cinematography, I worked with my close friend, amazing cinematographer, David Cruda, who shot that. He also shot Who's There. I wish I had him last weekend because I ended up directing and shooting the new one. So we shot that. The movie is about Russians in 1980s. So we shot this with old Russian Lomo anamorphic lenses. So these are like
Amazing.
These are the old school lenses I was using. So we had those lenses and we strapped those onto Alexa Mini. So it's an Alexa Mini with the Lomos.
Okay.
And then a lot of the look that you're getting, like those sweet flares and all that really beautiful sort of distortion on those close-ups, that's from the glass. And then I like Alexas because I like their color profile. Their color profile just softens and makes the image feel a little bit more filmic than red. But I'm not saying that red's, I've seen amazing stuff, like all of Fincher's stuff that he's been doing for television. Zack Snyder, I think, is doing red stuff. It's really beautiful. I think the difference between those two cameras is the red just feels more technical.
Yeah.
And the Alexa feels more like an art brush. But you can do great things with, they're just tools. You can manipulate them however you need to manipulate.
Yeah, like you said, I also prefer the look. I think you're 100% right in that one. Like, maybe I should get better at recognizing it, but like, I also prefer like the color profile.
If you're recognizing it, that means you're not watching the movie.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah. And look, at the end of the day, like, to get real nerdy about all that stuff, for me, I try to pick tools that I think work for the story and the narrative. So I know that there's a lot of people that'll shoot anamorphic because they're like, oh, the flares. Who cares about the flares? Anamorphic for me is you actually have a wider stage to have a play on. And so like I can do close-ups with 3 people in one frame. So you just have to pick the tools adequately for what it is that you want. And then you'd be surprised at how much of that look is also affected by using a hazer on set. It's also affected by the angle of light and how you're using the light. I've seen people shoot with the same exact package that I shoot with, and their stuff looks radically different because they're not using all of the practical effects in front of the lens, you know?
No, 100%. Yeah, like I feel like just the way that you and your cinematographer used it. Like you said, no matter really what the gear is, it's more the way you use it. And I was really impressed by the way you guys used it, and I thought I would shout that out. And yeah, that final scene was crazy, man. So good.
Yeah, without giving anything away. And by the way, those of you listening to the show, the only way you can see this movie, because it's not up on the internet, is you have to write to me on Instagram and tell me your 3 favorite horror movies. And if I agree with you, I'll send you a link to see the movie. It's the only way. That's the only way you can see it. Yeah, in the end of the movie, when he's sort of being taken over by the substance, I don't want to give too much away. There's this really cool sort of slow motion shot that happens. And we were using this material called super slime, I think is what it's called. And it was so fascinating. It's like a very sticky, sort of slimy substance. And as our actor was thrashing about in slow motion, the light that we were using to light him was such a warm light that this slime would solidify in the air and it would be feather light. And so the actual slime was floating around him as he did it. So none of that CGI, all of that stuff was practical.
Yeah, he looked incredible in that scene. Like I don't know how much it cost, but it looked like it cost like as much as any big.
Yeah, well, it depends on who's asking. If the big boys are asking, that cost me a few $1 million. But if the independent filmmakers are asking, you'd be surprised at what you could do for how much money.
Speaking of, you talked about favorite movies a minute ago. What are some movies that you really like that came out this year?
You know what I'm loving right now, and they're not really feature films, but they should be. I love Guillermo del Toro's Cabinet of Curiosities right now.
Okay, I'm halfway through that right now.
I haven't started. Pitch it to me, please.
It's like Black Mirror, but horror.
Yeah, so basically Guillermo's sort of doing it's like a throwback to like Alfred Hitchcock Presents, where Alfred Hitchcock used to have a television show and they would do, I don't know if they were hour-long episodes, but they would do episodes sort of around like a scary story, and I think they would have different directors come in and do it. So Guillermo is very supportive of horror directors. I would love to do one of these episodes, FYI, but very supportive. Yes, please. And so he's done this thing called Cabinet of Curiosities, which is sort of based upon these old cabinets that used to be used to sort of hide away secrets. And so each drawer in this cabinet is a different story. There's like a different prop that they pull out and sort of leads to the story. And so it's like a episodic 1 hour per episode. I think there's like 7 or 8.
I think there's 8. I've seen 4 so far.
Yeah, dude. Let me just say, he brought in some amazing directors. So he's got, I think it's Guillermo Navarro, who was
He directed the first one.
That one's amazing. The third one, which is The Autopsy, that one is like
Abraham.
So good. So fucking good. The techniques in that are amazing. The language of cinema in that is amazing. That one is so good. And then I skipped ahead and I watched Panos Cosmatos' new one. The guy who directed Mandy, and he also directed Beyond the Black Rainbow. And his is just crazy.
Okay, so, I'm excited.
Should I download it for the plane?
I think you'd enjoy it. And they're episodic. You don't have to watch them in order.
Yeah, it's so good. So that's really what I've been watching lately. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I feel like there was another. Oh my God, what else came out this year? I saw Black Adam the other day. Whatever.
Any horror movies you enjoy?
Holy shit, my brain is so fried because I was on set for like 48 hours.
Yeah.
What were the big horror flicks that came out this year?
Might have been Nope, Barbarian.
Interesting information. So I saw both Nope and Barbarian. I see one of the coolest things about being out here in California is that oftentimes you can get to advanced screenings and test screenings. And then luckily, because of my podcast, I've got some friends, so I'm able to go see things early. So I went and I saw like an early version of Barbarian, probably like 4 or 5 months ago. And we did a screening with the director, and they were sort of test screening footage and edits. And that was kind of fun to go through. That I generally enjoyed that movie. I thought that the vibe was really great. The first half of that movie is really great. I sort of roll my eyes and sort of crowbar social messaging that seems to be happening in everything these days in order to get it made. And so there's a couple moments in that I rolled my eyes, but generally I thought it was great. What was the Viking movie with
The Northman. Yeah, that was good.
I love the Northman.
It was great.
From Robert Eggers. Yeah.
I love the cinematography.
And just like, to me, that's like the coolest Viking movie ever. Like, it was really well done. Like, the sort of fever dream, sort of trippiness of it was so great. And I once again, I saw an advance to that probably 5 or 6 months ago. And I think they changed the edit a little too much. The version that I saw was like, whoa, was gut-wrenchingly cool. And they sort of softened it a bit, which I think was an injustice to the final release of that movie. And I hope they release a director's cut for it, because the version that I had seen was just a bit more gut-wrenching. But I think those were the big hits for me this year. I feel like there's another one that's just escaping me. But yeah, if I think of it, I'll tell you.
Well, leading into your podcast, as fellow podcasters, I'd like to know what are some takeaways that you had when you went about building your audience?
So I started the podcast initially because, and this is something I say on the show, there really isn't an honest resource for people that want to get into our business, an honest resource. And I remember when I was younger, I looked up to legends like David Fincher. I looked up to Mark Romanek. I looked up to Ridley Scott. And there, you could go to film school and spend a lot of money and go to film school. And some film schools back in the day, you would go and you would take the same class and you could end up being a boom operator. And one of your classmates can be the one that's doing the student directing for that. And it's the same tuition. And I was like, that's really not fair. And so when I was younger, I would just hunt, because this is prior to YouTube. So I would just hunt through like directors' commentaries on laser discs. I would just look really hard to find a glimpse of what it was really like and what my path should be if I wanted to make these things. And everything that I saw was sort of propaganda, like whenever you see one of those behind the scenes clips that come out for a movie, they're all the same. It's like they show the sets and the actors are like, it was so great working with the director. He's a genius. And then they cut to the director and the director ponders a little bit and poses and talks about stuff.
But they don't really show how they did it.
Anything. And so one of the things that I learned as a young filmmaker is that it takes 8 years, and I think they say 10,000 hours. It takes about 8 years before anybody cares about you, before anybody asks you to do anything, before you get recognized for anything. And those 8 years are really tough, because if you're young, you're like, I want to make a movie. I want to do this now. I want this to happen. I know everything. I know what's going on. And it takes you a little while to realize that you don't, and that it's okay to spend that time learning and figuring things out, and then also living your life. Because if you're going to be telling stories about life, you have to experience life. You have to experience death and love and all these different things. And so it's not that bad if you're not really getting any sort of interest until your early 30s, because you've got that early time to learn the language, to learn the technicals, to learn all that stuff. And so once I crossed into doing music videos, we started to do music videos for pretty large heavy metal bands and hip hop bands. And so you get a big audience reaction right away. Like I'll make a video, put it online, and then immediately the audience will respond. And so I started to have a lot of people write to me, a lot of young filmmakers write to me and say, I don't know if I'm ready for this business. I don't know if I'm doing it right. And I'd say, well, how long are you doing it for? And they're like, well, this is my first year. And I'm like, okay, you all have the wrong opinion on how this thing works. I'm going to do a podcast that tells the truth about it. And I'll tell you guys what I'm going through and everything that I wished when I was younger. Like I wish Rob Zombie had a podcast that he went on there and said, guys, this is how hard it is to make stuff. Because then you feel okay, like doing it and having it take so long. You go, this is the job. This is what
because you needed someone to ground it for you.
And you're not beating yourself up. The years and years that I spent beating myself up over it just wasted emotional time. And so when I started the show, that's what the show initially started as. And then it became a very selfish thing for me where I wanted to get people on the show that I want to work with and that I like and that I respect. And then it became even more than that, where I didn't want it just to be a filmmaking show. So suddenly it was like everything that I love. Like I love cooking, I love barbecuing. I get to meet rock stars. I get to do all this stuff in my job. So I started to make the show about all of that. And the byproduct of it is that I meet really great people like you guys. And we get to talk about what we love about the business. And when I just shot this movie last weekend, I used all this stuff that I learned from talking with Academy Award-winning cinematographers, production designers. There were probably 100 moments on set where I sat there and I went, right. I remember that my guest told me about this. I should really think about that. And so I'm learning at the same time that the audience is learning. So it becomes really fun,
Amazing. That's kind of like the perfect podcast for us as well. Cause like, we've been doing the podcast thing for like about 2 years, but we're in the beginning of like we both of us have the dream of like, just telling stories and doing movies, like, right, all kids like us, you know. And so I feel like it really is the perfect podcast for us, because like you're right, there's this really like mystified sort of like dreamlike image that filmmakers get, like
But filmmakers, they're just like us.
but like but like you just see, like, like the really big ones, like, and you don't see the struggles they went through to get there, like they rarely talk about it. And you're right, it's really important, because we also meet a lot of people that, like, are going through the same thing. And yeah, I really appreciate what you're doing. I just wanted to
So if our listeners need to go, if our listeners want to go now and listen to In Love with the Process, what's one episode that they should go to, or something you really enjoyed recording, or an episode that really resonated with you?
Well, there's so many. It depends on what your interest is. What I've done to keep it really simple, like you can listen to the show on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. I think we're at like 200 and something episodes, and that can be daunting. Like if you go there and you're like, okay, there are all these episodes and I don't recognize these names, because I'll have like horror film directors and like chefs. I've separated it all on the In Love with the Process website. So if you're someone that wants to go and listen to director episodes, they're all there, chef episodes, etc., etc. So if there's an episode that I really loved, I did one recently, which was so successful that it became 2 episodes. And it was with photographer David James. And he is one of the oldest working still photographers from set. So he's done like set stills for every major Spielberg movie. He did set stills for all of the Mission Impossible movies. He started on like way back in the day on Hitchcock stuff. He was such an inspirational person to listen to, and to hear his entire career path and all of the advice that he had. It's a great episode. So it's more recent. I think it's like 215 or something. But David James, those episodes are really great. And I just finished interviewing, which comes out on the 22nd, the cinematographer for Mank.
Eric Messerschmidt.
Eric Messerschmidt is on the show.
Oh, he's fantastic.
Won an Oscar for that movie.
Dude, his story about how Fincher asked him to be his cinematographer, because he was a gaffer before this.
Yeah.
So he was a gaffer and all this stuff. He tells us the story on the show. And then we also talk slightly about his new movies, because he just shot the new Michael Mann movie on Ferrari. He just shot.
And he's working with Fincher again on The Killer.
Yeah, dude. So that one comes out on the 22nd, and that's him and I got along really well. And he really breaks through all the facade and tells the real story of what it's like to be a cinematographer for those guys.
Amazing.
So thank you so much for sharing a little bit about your career, Mike. It's been very interesting to hear. Now we're moving into our stop motion madness special. We decided we're each going to count down our top 5 stop motion animated movies of all time. So we're going to go, each of us. I was thinking we could do
5 through 3, and then each one of us goes second, and then each one of us goes first. How does that sound?
So, all right. So you let me know. We'll go around. You guys tell me when you want me to say what.
Perfect.
Okay, so you can start. Tell us your number 5 through 3 favorite stop motion animated movies.
I have a feeling we're going to have similar ones.
Yeah.
Well, we might. I'm going to throw you some loops too here, because I'm going to stretch the rules of what I think stop motion animated movies are.
Oh, so I think I know what movie might be on here that I omitted. Okay, let's hear it.
All right. So I would say number 5 for me would be the place that I saw stop animation and it really affected me, and I thought it was the coolest stop animation as a kid, is the original King Kong.
Ooh.
Oh,
that's a good choice.
Animation that was done was so epic. It's so fascinating to me. It was Willis O'Brien, right, who did the animation on that. And what I like about it, it's funny because I was writing an idea that was going to have a large monster in it, and I was pitching the idea of potentially doing a large monster stop animation because there's something really cool about the movement and the starter movement of the creatures, and specifically with Kong. The animator really made that character come to life, and it has influenced every sort of CGI remake since then. They're all trying to do the same sort of like frumple and movements and everything. So I would say the original Kong is probably number 5 for me.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever gotten to the 1933 one. It's obviously one of the most influential movies ever made.
Oh my God, dude. What are you talking? What do you mean you haven't got to it? It's not like you have to wait for it to come around in cinemas.
I always watched the 2005 one and thought, okay, I've watched the more like updated one, so I just never saw it.
No, all right, look, I'm going to say this right now. I think a lot of people are allergic to going back and watching older cinema, but really, even though it's a different time period, even though people may speak differently, that's really the origins of the language of movie making, and you're seeing it in its rawest form. So definitely go watch the original.
Yeah, I've been trying to definitely go after more older movies more often. Like I recently watched Sunset Boulevard for the first time, so I've been trying to do that more often.
Yeah.
What's number 4 for you?
100%. So number 4, let's stick with the same sort of motif, and I'm going to break the rules again. For the same reasons, I'm going to say that Jurassic Park is my number 4. Because all of the work that Phil Tippett did on that movie, originally all the dinosaurs were supposed to be stop animation. And when they created the computer effects work, they still needed Tippett to come in and animate it. So they actually built a little doll that he can animate all the CGI stuff. So all the CGI moves and everything were done by a stop motion animator. So that's why the dinosaur movements are so cool in that, because it's the same sort of stop animation for it.
It's what we were talking about practical effects, and I think stop motion is a great example of that, of how you can like cheat. I know that CGI wasn't that big back then, but like how you can cheat in a way that like it's way like cheaper, but also it looks honestly better than a lot of stuff. Like for 94, was that when it came out?
93.
93.
And he did Schindler in the same year.
So
Spielberg.
So yeah.
That's crazy, dude. That's crazy.
What a year.
That's insane.
Phil Tippett, who did the animation, he just released, I haven't seen it yet, but the God movie, Unholy God or something, which is all animated, that he did. I'm pretty excited about that one. I haven't seen that one yet, but same guy did that stuff.
And then number 3 for you?
Number 3 would be more traditional. Wow. I don't know. Maybe stop motion? Maybe no, because it was puppeteering. I was going to say Team America, but that's all puppeteering.
Ooh.
I don't think there is any.
Did they film it in stop motion though? Because I haven't watched it, but I'm pretty sure they might have.
There might be some, but I think I'm screwing up the rules too much on this, because that would be. I think it's mostly puppeteering for that. I don't think it was stop motion.
I'm fact checking this now because now I'm curious too.
Yeah.
It says it's a puppet comedy, so I don't know if they just filmed it continuously.
Yeah, no, I think that was all puppet. I think that was like marionettes.
It says there was a little bit of stop motion, but it's like typically puppets.
Yeah. Okay. So then no on that. Oh man, I totally fucked up that list then.
Don't worry.
It's all good.
You're giving our viewers like a completely different side for this episode.
Well, dude, I will replace that with Wallace and Gromit. So any of the Wallace and Gromit movies are just pure, like pure heartwarming goodness. Like when you watch those films, you just feel like, hey, I'm gonna go out and buy some molded clay, and I'm gonna create some big eyes and some weird chickens, and I'm gonna make a really great story with it. Those movies, all of their movies are phenomenal.
I'm gonna refrain from talking about
Me
that
too,
right now.
Me too. Okay, so I'll
Because
continue.
it's definitely not in my list, right?
I'll continue with 5 through 3 because this is going to get interesting. Number 5 for me, I don't know if it'll be on any of our lists because one of them was like less traditional. Okay, I'll go with it. Number 5 is Fantastic Mr. Fox for my top 5 stop motion movies. It's one of 2 animated movies that Wes Anderson has done, and it has an all-star cast with George Clooney, Meryl Streep, Bill Murray. Most of his frequent collaborators are in it, and it's not one of my favorite movies of his, but it's still an enjoyable movie and has all his style. He hasn't missed for me. He's one of my favorite directors.
I love him.
Wes Anderson. And then number 4 is Wallace and Gromit: The Curse of the Were-Rabbit for me.
That's a great one.
So yeah, it's been a while since I've seen it all the way through. But again, all those movies they had this really pure sense of fun to them, this British humor. Peter Sallis is the voice of Wallace. It's short and it's simple, and Helena Bonham Carter played like his love interest in the movie. And also they had like this scene of him transforming into the rabbit, which is either really terrifying or really cool, depending on what age you are. So that's a really entertaining one. It also might be the only one that won the Oscar for animated feature of these, and it was done by Aardman, which also did Shaun the Sheep, The Pirates, Chicken Run, and then a movie I almost had on my list until I realized it wasn't stop motion, is Flushed Away, which they worked on, which is a computer animated movie that I loved growing up, but they animated it to look like clay. So then number 3 is going to be Coraline, which is a movie that is also from Henry Selick. I think it's a really great movie for all ages because it has enough creepiness that it sort of challenges younger audiences. But when it comes to the visual style and the ideas, I think all audiences can really enjoy Coraline. And the imagery always stuck with me. And Dakota Fanning is really good as the lead. It's got really interesting themes, and it's one that you can watch again and really get back like all the visual details. So that's it for me for now.
It's your number 3?
Yeah.
Okay. So my list was also it's a bit similar, but I guess it is what it is. Flushed Away also almost made it. It's at like I know it's not supposed to, but like it's almost there. My number 5 would be Cuba and the Two Strings. By help me out here.
It was directed by Travis Knight.
Travis Knight, thank you. Yeah.
What's the name of it again? What's the name of the movie?
Kubo and the Two Strings.
No, I've never seen it.
It came out
really
2016.
good. It's really good. Yeah, it's a recent one. It came out 2016. And again, it's just I think all these movies have like this earnestness to them. I don't know how more to put it when you see like the amount of work that goes into like a stop motion animation movie. Like it really needs to be like a passion project for everyone involved, and like this one is more of like an adventure, and I love the characters in it. Like I said, Travis Knight did a fantastic job directing that movie. That's the movie that put him like on the map. He did it for Laika.
Who did Coraline also, and Paranorman.
Yeah.
And the Box Trolls.
And that's the movie that put him on the map. And like now he's doing like really big stuff. He did a Transformers movie with Bumblebee, and now I forgot what he's doing now. Gal probably knows.
I don't remember.
Okay,
I'm
he's
sure
doing
I've looked it
something
up, but I don't
big.
remember.
And yeah, so recommendation for you then, Mike. It's a great movie. Number 4, it's something that I thought would be mentioned by now, but maybe it's good that it hasn't, because maybe it's gonna pop up soon. It is The Corpse Bride, directed by Tim Burton and Mike Johnson. Again, one of those movies that I watched as a kid that half traumatized me, half made me fall in love with movies. Um, it's a really fun, kind of like weirdly romantic, like Halloween movie for kids.
And I just watched it for the first time because of your recommendation, because somehow I missed it when I was growing up.
Yeah, like it's one of the ones that I like. A theme that always comes up when we're talking about like kids movies is that I always watch this with my sister, and this is one of the ones that we used to put on a lot. Like it's oh, man, it's just really good. I haven't watched it in a while. I really want to watch it again now that I'm
Yeah.
talking about it. Yeah, like a really unique story, especially for a kids movie, and yeah, Tim Burton did a fantastic job here. Like Johnny Depp and Helena Bonham Carter, also really good leads for this one.
Have you seen Frankenweenie?
I haven't.
Oh, I saw it back in theaters. It was Tim Burton's last animated movie. It was good.
Nice, I'll put it on my list.
Yeah, I mean, Tim's always done really great stuff with stop animation. I mean, you go back and look at Beetlejuice, right? And the worms in Beetlejuice and all the different effects that he.
Favorites of his.
Yeah. So I always liked Tim Burton stuff. He always felt like that nerdy sort of art student from New York out of the 90s that.
That's a good enough.
That's accurate.
It's very accurate. Okay, and
So,
yeah, my oh god, I lost my list.
So 3?
Number 3.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think that's
my
okay.
number 3 is the same as Gal's, is Coraline. Going back to the thing I just mentioned with my sister, her name is actually Caroline, and I remember when you're kids, we were like super excited when it was coming out because we were like, oh, it's a movie about her, and like and she was like, after we watched it, she was like, no, it's not about me.
Is there a movie called Alan?
There's probably a movie called Alan, but again, it's one of those that like just really stuck in my memory because of that experience, watching it in the movie theater with my sister and us being like amazed and like just what could happen in movies. Right, we were really young and like it was just a really cool experience.
The button
and,
eyes creeped me out so much.
yeah,
I was 7
yeah.
when this movie came out, and just that image of people having
You were
buttons for
7,
eyes.
so then I must have
It was
been. Like,
2009.
oh
I was
God!
born
I
2002.
think I was older than I thought I was in that memory, and maybe shouldn't have scared me that much.
Oh, you're 13, I guess.
I was 13. Jesus.
Wow.
I guess I was I was not great still with scary movies when I was 13. Scary movies, but yeah, like it's also one of those ones that like really stuck with me, and yeah, directed by Henry Selick as well, which is a guy that's coming up a lot in this episode, and in my opinion, one of his best, honestly. Maybe I have another one here. Let's see.
All right, Mike, let's hear the top 2.
top 2. All right. Well, to continue with my tradition of breaking sort of the rules of this list, let's say that my number 2 isn't necessarily, well, it's not a movie. Number 2 is a animation piece that really influenced me when I was younger, really opened my eyes to how disturbing stop animation can
No
be.
way. Was it the thing that we watched today? What was it called?
It's a music video for the band Tool, and they did a music video called Sober. And this was directed by Fred Sturr, and it was on constant rotation on MTV when I was a kid because I would watch MTV stuff all the time. And it's an animated piece with these creepy little gross doll puppets that have nails in them, and like, so when you mention like Coraline and the button eye, those guys have obviously seen this piece.
Clearly influenced.
Have you guys seen it? Have you guys seen this video?
I don't know what you're
No.
talking about. Maybe if I saw it, like I would be like, oh, definitely I watch it because I was glued to
We can
MTV
write
when
it
I was a
down.
kid as well. So
Sober by
maybe-
who?
by Tool, the band.
Okay, I'll write it down and we'll watch it right after this.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, okay. You guys gonna get ready for that. So yeah, great track, great band. Tool went on to do a few other animated ones as well. So if you are big fans of it, watch their music video catalog because their stop motion stuff is just phenomenal. And then you want me to do my number one, or are we doing number two? Okay, so sticking with that, when I saw the Tool video, I was just obsessed with that stop animation. So I did a bit more digging when I was younger, and I found the origins of it all. And there is a film called Street of Crocodiles. It's directed by the brothers Quay.
Oh,
and the brothers
Nolan made a
Quay,
documentary about them.
the brothers Quay have done quite a few incredibly creepy, strange animations. They were twin brothers, and I found when I was younger, it was on DVD. I found the brothers Quay. I wonder if I have it behind me. I found the brothers Quay DVD collection, which had like 3 or 4 of their animated pieces, and they are scary, strange, creepy pieces. And this sort of fits into the motif of everything that we've been talking about on the show about practical effects.
Yes.
And everything happening practically. This side, like, they would animate screws unscrewing from the floor. They did all sorts of really weird stuff. So those of you listening, I know that this is so far. I think you can find it on Criterion. I think they're on Criterion. So if you have the Criterion channel or something, definitely watch the brothers Quay work. And Street of Crocodiles is my favorite.
Right.
Yeah, I hear there's stuff like borderline scary and whatnot.
Yeah, dude.
Wow, they directed a lot of stuff.
My girlfriend can't watch them. She's like, these are so creepy and gross and scary, and I want nothing to do with them. So of course I like them more.
So this might be the ones that Gal watches it and he's like, oh, that's fantastic, and I watch it like this.
I don't know. I've never gotten into stop motion shorts, or maybe I have, but a long time ago. The Wallace and Gromit shorts I've gotten into. Okay, number 2 for me. I'm continuing a trend that I started off my list with. Number 2 is Isle of Dogs. Another fantastic Wes Anderson movie. Might honestly be one of his best. And I missed this one when it came out in theaters, but I still managed to watch it. And I just thought it was terrific. It was like maybe he tries to like out-style himself each time. So at that time, it was like his most Wes Anderson-y movie. And now he's maybe even outdone that with The French Dispatch. The cast is Bryan Cranston, Bill Murray, Scarlett Johansson, Greta Gerwig, Edward Norton. And yeah, just the visual storytelling was fantastic. And it kind of flips the script on, instead of like a human who's distrusting of the other, the main guy is like a dog who's distrusting of humans and cynical at them, which I thought Bryan Cranston did a wonderful job in that voice role. And I haven't seen it in a long time. I saw it like around the time it came out on digital, like 4 years ago, but it's definitely one that when Wes Anderson comes up, you have to talk about Isle of Dogs, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. It's a great one. It was going to be on my list. I think that one's fantastic.
Yeah, well, it's a feature film, but we appreciate the uses of stop motion. Like Quay, we will check out now.
Oh, you're gonna love her.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And then number 1 for me was already mentioned also. Kubo and the Two Strings is my favorite.
Wow, it's your number 1.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think it's held up the best because I was debating between those 1 and 2, but Kubo I think is just wonderful. Laika, like we said, they started off with Coraline, then they went to Paranorman, and then they did Kubo and the Two Strings. And this one just feels like a massive adventure as much as it is creative visual story. I mean, we've only seen a couple animated movies get nominated for visual effects. I think it might just be this and Nightmare Before Christmas at the Oscars, which is an amazing feat. And so it's like this classic adventure. I don't remember if he's considered a samurai, Kubo, or whatnot, but the voice cast is terrific. I mean, Charlize Theron and Matthew McConaughey are leading the cast, and Rooney Mara has this great supporting part. And I thought it was incredibly heartfelt. And like, I appreciated that it wasn't as creepy as Laika's last two movies, and it was a little more heartfelt, but with the villain characters, it still managed to get dark. So
Yeah.
it's definitely one that I want to rewatch soon. So that and Isle of Dogs are close with me, but that's not undermining the rest of my list because they're all great.
Yeah, this is why I didn't say that much about that movie. I knew you were gonna go crazy about it. I didn't know it was gonna make your number one, but I knew you were gonna go a bit crazy with it, so I just said a little bit. But yeah, like I second everything you just said. I will give this movie like the biggest blessing. I watched it with a girl that ruined my life for like about 6 months. So the fact that it's still on my list proves how good a movie that is.
Yeah, well, I guess I watched it. It's another movie, just like Isle of Dogs, that I watched on a plane, and I still like enjoyed it so much.
Awesome. So I guess I'll go with mine. I think they were both mentioned already, but whatever. We'll move on. So my second one is Wallace and Gromit, The Curse of the Were-Rabbit. This again, all of these are harkening back to when I was a kid, because that was when I was most in love with these movies, and yeah, I really want to rewatch all of them. Like, I know I've rewatched them recently, but like probably not for a couple of years. So I definitely wanna give them a rewatch. But I'm second everything you guys said about Wallace and Gromit. They're like so sincere, so heartfelt, and yeah, just great movies to show your kids, or if you are a kid, to watch it. It will give you like a nice little view on life.
It's a great like clumsy slapstick charm.
Yeah.
I want to add one thing.
Very charming.
I want to add
Yeah,
one thing.
go
Is
for it.
the Shaun the Sheep that stop motion show originated as a Wallace and Gromit spin-off. And the Shaun the Sheep movie is actually really good. It has zero dialogue, and it's actually really good. I haven't seen the sequel yet, which I think is called Farmageddon, but I want to watch it because they were both nominated for Oscars, and I really like the first one.
Well, they started out doing shorts too. So initially they were doing a bunch of shorts that were really great. Yeah. All their stuff is great. You find that with stop motion animation, it's really the animator that comes through, and it's when voice acting is obviously important, but it's really the animator. Yeah. And there's one person that is like frame for frame, slightly moving wrists and fingers and fur, and they really build the performance.
Yes.
I don't have the patience for it. Like,
Yeah,
I go crazy.
I go insane. I think I tried when I was a kid. Like, I know, when you're a kid and you try to like do all these different types of movies and stuff. I remember I tried once to do like a stop motion thing.
Really?
And I could only get through like maybe a minute of footage, and I was going insane.
Yeah.
And I was a kid when you usually have more patience than most adults. So I can't even imagine trying to do something like that again. Like, yeah, it just seems takes too much patience for me.
Mm-hmm.
So my number one movie is from the same guys actually just Nick Park did this one as well. Not Steve Box. It was
It's Aardman, right?
no, it was Nick Park and Peter Lorre. Is Chicken Run, which was also mentioned here already. It's definitely my favorite stop motion animation film. This movie has been memed a lot in Brazil as the second coming of the Marxist propaganda, which is like, I don't know why that's like such a big meme in Brazil, but like I love this movie so much. It's so fun. Like again, we're talking about like the actors. The voice cast in here is really good. Mel Gibson is really good in it. Who else is in it? Let's see here.
Timothy Spall was in it.
Was he?
Yeah, he was the rat.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Do you know how I know this? Because I watched it for the first time for this episode, thinking it would make my list. It didn't. I liked it. I didn't love it. But another one I can't believe I missed as a kid, along with Corpse Bride.
Yeah, this one came out in 2000. So like like I probably saw it maybe 2002 or 3, somewhere along those lines. And again, it's one of the ones that grabbed me at like such a young age. I think this and The Lion King were the two movies I watched the most when I was a kid.
Mhm.
Like I would just put it on like on repeat when I was like 8 or 9, and I would just watch it over and over again. And yeah, that's why it has such a special place in my heart.
You guys are so much younger than I am, and so much nicer. I mean, well, like if you're gonna ask me the movies that I was watching when I was a kid, it was like The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing. It was Nightmare on Elm Street.
But I think
Those are
it's
movies
because
I only got to like in the last year.
this is like I think we just proved it with this episode when I was 13 and scared of Coraline. That's why
We're
it took,
softer.
that's why it took me so long to get into horror, because I was so scared. I think I saw Knowing, which is barely even like a horror movie, and I couldn't
Knowing.
sleep for a month. So there you go. So that's why it took me longer to get into that type of movie. But now it's like one of my favorite genres, actually.
One more thing is, I'm sure there's going to be backlash about the fact that none of us put Nightmare on.
It was my
the
number
Nightmare
6.
The Nightmare Before Christmas. I don't know why I couldn't say the name. None of us put Nightmare Before Christmas. It would for sure be an honorable mention. I just haven't seen it in too long, and I'd for sure watch it again.
When you guys asked me to do this list thing, I did like a quick search because I just wanted to refresh my memory.
Mhm.
And so I did like a top 25 animated stop motion animated list. And all the lists are the fucking same. They're all the same.
Yeah.
It's people going Nightmare Before Christmas, Nightmare, as if
We
there
gotta change
hasn't
it
been
up.
any of these other amazing movies. And that's one of the reasons why I tried to go off the rails and give you guys some really interesting.
That's why we loved it, because like
Yeah, it
other
was
else
fun.
just would have been like the same thing.
We would have gone back with nothing to watch.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, so I think what happens is that, you know, when we're younger, everything that we see between the ages of like, you know, 10 and 15 or whatever, those really affect us. And each generation has that effect on it. And those are the movies, like if you were to ask me, when you look at my work, you'll see like Steven Spielberg movies like Close Encounters and all these different films that I saw when I was a kid make my movies what they are today. But there hit a point when I was like younger and I went, oh man, but these directors that I love, they keep talking about these other filmmakers. They talk about like Howard Hawks and they talk about all these guys. I'm going to spend some time and go back and watch these older movies. Then I start to understand the influence that they had on the movies that I loved. And then I start to love the older movies just as much as that. And so I think for those of you listening, an important thing to remember is, yes, you could do a Google search real quick and go, what are the top 5 horror movies? And you'll find 25, 35 lists of the same movies on those lists because people feel like they have to mention them in order to be validated, which is bullshit. You really can go back further and dig through the older things and the older language of cinema. And even if you find something, the movie could be half trash, right? And you watch the whole thing. But even if there's just a scene or if there's just a moment in it that affects you, then the movie was worth watching. And so I tried to do that with our list on today, my list on today's show. Go watch these movies that I guarantee you 90% of everybody that's listening to this podcast doesn't know anything about.
Yeah.
I mean, Jurassic Park we've seen, but
Well, okay, yeah. But no one knows about Brothers Quay. You go back and watch that stuff and then watch Chicken Run and then watch all these other pieces and go,
That's what
and there's something fascinating about the undistilled piece, you know?
I want to refer actually to I think it was Jon Favreau who said this. I might be wrong. I might be making this up. But like why The Mandalorian hits very similarly to how Star Wars hit back in the 70s, and it's because instead of him doing what most Star Wars directors did after that, which is trying to emulate George Lucas and emulate the original Star Wars, he went back to what inspired George Lucas, like the old samurai movies and the old westerns, like Akira Kurosawa and all that, and and he based it all off that's why that feels so much fresher and so much more like, I guess, like the Star Wars that we love more than actual like Star Wars stuff that came after. So I think that's something that a lot of times gets left behind in the film community. But you're completely
sure.
right. We should always go back and see where all of this came from to really understand the stuff we love, and we're probably gonna find some more stuff that we love. Like one of my favorite movies of all time is Casablanca, and I've watched Casablanca probably like last year because I had this weird preconceived notions about older movies, and after that it just allowed me to go back and watch a bunch of other older movies. So that's why I hold that movie so close to my heart, because it's the one that like broke this this thing in my head that was blocking me to watch like these older movies. So yeah, always go back, always watch everything that inspired the people that you loved.
Yeah.
And it's
I'm
just
trying to
gonna
do
give
it
you
more.
a more appreciation for them as well.
Well, you mentioned The Mandalorian. Hold on. You mentioned The Mandalorian.
It's gonna bring out a Mandalorian helmet.
So, Mandalorian is essentially this.
Yeah, the lone wolf and the cub. 100%.
That's it, man. That is Mandalorian, 100%. And instead of there being a samurai, just put a helmet on him and change the kid on the back to Baby Yoda.
He's green.
That's it, dude. These movies are this series of movies are fantastic. Go watch them.
They really are. They really are.
Wolf
Everyone
and the
go
Cub.
watch The Lone Wolf and the Cub.
Wow. Thank you, Mike. You've given us
That's a great
lot
place
to,
to leave it. That's a fantastic place for us to leave it. Nothing to do with stop motion, but like 100% a fantastic place to leave it.
No, I
with
love
that
where this
recommendation.
conversation went. So, Mike, thank you so much for your time, for your advice, for your recommendations. We really enjoyed it, and we hope our viewers, you guys enjoyed and got as much out of it as we did.
Yeah.
So, Mike, just remind us, where can we find you on YouTube, Instagram, Spotify?
Mm-hmm. So best place to get in touch with me, if you want to see my movie, write to me on Instagram. Send me a message on Instagram. And we get a bunch of messages, so I try to get to them all. But at Mike Pecci on Instagram is the place for that. If you want to listen to the podcast, it's called In Love with the Process. And you can find that on Spotify, all the main podcast networks, or just go to inlovewiththeprocess.com. And there you'll be able to sort through the episodes and listen to the ones that you really want to hear.
Fantastic, man. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you come again soon. Like we honestly had a great time with you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, fellas. I appreciate it.
Have a good one.
Film Fanatics. From the silver screen to your earphones with Alan Azulay and Gal Balaban.